The game we all love is popular almost all around the world. Football is played by rich and poor alike, both low and high profile. In the poor tribes of Africa and the most developed European countries, a huge number of people are football fans. Football matches draw millions of viewers, and when it comes to the World Cup, there are already billions of viewers. And this trend is present practically all over the world. But still, there are countries where football is not as popular. We won't talk about all of them here, but only one country in particular, the USA. For those who don't know the intricacies of football, it's probably quite a shock that football, or rather soccer as it's called in the United States, is not as popular as it is in Europe. You must be wondering why this is so. In this video, we'll tell you the reasons behind football's low popularity in the USA and share our thoughts on why this may soon change drastically. So don't forget to subscribe, like and leave a 4-word comment. Okay, let's go. In fact, there are a myriad of nuances why football has not gained the popularity in the US that it has in a bunch of other countries. Since we've touched on other countries first, it's worth mentioning an incredibly important reason for football's low popularity in the US, which has to do with geography. So, if you look at a map of the world, you quickly realize that there are only 3 large countries in North America, and that significantly reduces the range of teams that the US guys can play against. First, let's talk about the game at the national level. On every continent, national teams regularly win trophies in major tournaments. For the Europeans, it is the European Football Championship, or the Euros, and the teams approach it with the same commitment as they do to the World Cup. For the Africans, it's the Africa Cup of Nations, which is also an incredibly important trophy for African footballers. In South America, it is the Copa America, which some football fans from the continent place above the World Cup. And all of these tournaments force players from these countries to regularly work on their national teams to constantly prove the quality of their game and win trophies. And for the USA national team, there is no tournament that compels the entire country to follow their national team, with the exception of the World Cup, which is held every 4 years and still doesn't get the attention it deserves from the US people. A very important reason for this, which essentially stems from the reason we will tell you a little later, is the fact that Americans are used to being first in everything and only make a fuss about something when they have a total domination on the world stage. This is not the case with football for these guys. For example, when the Russian national team promotes out of the group, it is a celebration for the whole country, even if the team ends up leaving the playoffs pretty quickly. The USA team regularly makes it out of the group stage at the Mundials and only loses to the top teams at the recent World Championships. But this is not enough for the Americans, and therefore such a result does not resonate with them. It is tantamount to disagree for them. Now we come to the second reason why the USA national team does not excel at the world level. The USA clubs. MLS is a pretty weak league, where a lot of retirees go and have no problem playing at a good level, when in Europe they just couldn't keep up. A lot of that has to do with the lack of competition. In fact, the teams in the league are quite weak as it is, plus there's no serious experience of playing against other championship clubs, as happens regularly in Europe. European teams fight every season for the right to play in the Champions League or Europa League to compete against the best representatives of other leagues. All this forces individual players and coaching staffs to work hard, thereby encouraging the whole European continent to develop their football. This is one of the reasons which is difficult, but not impossible to solve. After all, we have the example of the NBA. National basketball teams don't need to play against the big European clubs, as the NBA league itself is the best in the world, and the most prestigious title is the NBA Cup trophy. In the endless competition between each other, the clubs raise true stars, who then successfully play for the national team and give the citizens of the United States that emotion and momentum, which they later project to the game at home. I mean, after the success of the national team, the US population is even more eager, for example, to send their child to basketball. Unfortunately, this has not happened to MLS so far. We have talked about the reasons for the poor popularity of football in the United States, which relate directly to the players and the level of development of the sport in the country. Let us now look at the factors which are a little subjective at first glance, but nevertheless definitely exist. One of these is that Americans love to earn and spend. Advertisers adore to push their products just about everywhere. If we look at sports such as hockey or, for example, American football, we quickly realize that there are regular breaks in these games, during which advertisers successfully push a huge stream of advertising. which in turn makes good money for the entire categories of people related to the sports. And that gives a financial boost to development. Football, on the other hand, doesn't have this because, in essence, there's only a 15-minute break between halves for the entire game. During this time, many spectators are simply distracted with their affairs, so advertising does not work as effectively and does not bring as much money as it does in other sports. Football also lacks something else that other Americans adore: lots of effective action. Yeah, Americans don't like to watch players run around all game long and not score a single goal in 90 minutes, which happens all too often in football. After all, they find it far more interesting to watch high-scoring games such as basketball or American football, where draws are rare and scores are incomparable with soccer. At one point, there was even a suggestion to reform the United States soccer in such a way that points would not only be awarded for goals, but also for a whole range of other things. For example, for shots on goal or entering the penalty box. Had those reforms happened, they might have artificially raised the popularity of football for a while, but it would not have been the same football that we all love, but a monster hybrid. We have described the situation that was in the USA for a long time, and it's still stuck in the heads of millions of Americans. But nevertheless, although about 5 to 10 years ago soccer in the US was predicted to be dead, but now it's changed and soccer begins its slow, but according to all predictions, steady ascent to the Olympus of sport in the USA. With that in mind, we want to tell you about the first real success of soccer, and the things they need to keep on doing to push the sport ahead. In order to gain real popularity, soccer needs to stand alongside the mastodons of American sports, such as baseball or American football, hockey, and basketball. You may have smirked and thought it was impossible. Don't jump to conclusions, and we'll tell you why. Baseball's popularity has dropped considerably, as the sport has seen its worst attendance since 1997, with a drop of as much as 7%. Over the same period, soccer's popularity increased by as much as 70%, and continues to grow. As for basketball, in a cross-state survey of youth, it was found that 0.6% more youth chose soccer as their favorite sport than basketball. And that's really unbelievable, isn't it? American football has not yet been surpassed by soccer, but that is only a matter of years. American football is a very injury-prone sport, which in turn greatly affects parents' willingness to send their children to the sport, and this slows the popularity rate considerably. Also, a couple of months ago, a study was revealed that 99% of deceased American football players had a serious illness, such as chronic traumatic encephalopathy. After the study was released, match attendance dropped by an average of 4,000, an all-time low and unlikely to regain its former level. After all, Americans are becoming more and more health conscious each year and are trying to avoid things that are detrimental to the body. There are now 3 times as many soccer-related scholarship programs at higher education facilities in the United States as there are in American football. A similar trend can be seen among schools. Every year, the number of soccer teams grows at an incredible rate. And just recently, soccer became the 4th most popular sport, surpassing hockey. All this tells us that soccer is very close to becoming fully established in American society. Also, let's not forget that there are still a huge number of options that can move soccer as fast as it can. Just recall the excitement garnered by the move of international stars such as David Beckham and Zlatan Ibrahimovic to the MLS. Many people want to watch matches just to see them. Also, a prime example of the positive impact on popularity is Cristiano Ronaldo's most recent transfer to a club from Saudi Arabia called Al Nassr. Before this transfer, the Saudis themselves were not really interested in their league, but now people from all over the world are following it. The number of social media followers, match attendance, and broadcasts have multiplied. Now imagine what a furor this could cause in the MLS. And can you imagine what would happen if the Americans not only successfully lure top-level players in, but also develop their own stars who would attract millions of fans? And those, in turn, will fill the stands just to see their idol or a new American soccer phenomenon. It's not just a matter of good scouting, it's also a matter of good coaching. In the early days, you need regular involvement of the coolest coaching staffs. After all, this is the key to success in developing talented youngsters. And the final, but significant factor that affects soccer's success is the 2026 World Cup, to be held in North America. Americans will be able to see the best players on the planet and watch them play. The USA had already hosted the Mundial in 1994, and the demand for soccer grew so high that the first national championship was held just 2 years later. This time, the excitement will probably be even bigger. Furthermore, the football infrastructure will be improved and hopefully it will be properly applied after the World Cup. In this video, we discussed a rather controversial topic related to soccer in the USA. Despite the fact that many people bury such a thing as soccer in North America, we've managed to prove the opposite, and we are fully convinced that the development of this sport has just begun. It is absolutely possible that in a couple of decades, it will be the most popular sport in the United States. Do you agree with us? Write in the comments. It'll be interesting to know what you think. See ya!